$1 million bid, a room full of whispers, and one woman daring to challenge the unspoken rules of privilege. Jasmine Carter walked into the grand ballroom of the city's most exclusive charity auction, and the moment she crossed the threshold, every eye in the room found her. Some looked with curiosity, some with admiration, and others with thinly veiled hostility. Hello, everyone. Before we dive deeper, I want to know where you're watching from. Which city are you in right now? Make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like to support the channel. Jasmine had come prepared, her mind clear and her purpose resolute. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the subtle tension of competitive socialites sizing each other up. The auction was the highlight of the season, and the guests were used to setting the tone, deciding who belonged and who did not. From across the room, Charles Whitmore, the organizer of the event, a man known for his meticulous control and unspoken elitism, observed her approach with a raised brow, his eyes cold and calculating. Whispers circled like a low hum, assessing her presence, noting the audacity of a woman standing so confidently in a room built on unspoken hierarchies. Jasmine moved with a calm determination, aware of every glance, every side comment, but she kept her composure, knowing that tonight was about more than just appearances. Her goal was simple: support the cause she cared about while asserting her space without compromise. Guests murmured as she passed, some questioning her choice of attire, some letting their assumptions slip into thinly veiled criticism. The subtle racism embedded in their comments stung quietly, but Jasmine's mind remained focused. She had faced dismissals before, moments where her worth had been questioned simply because of her skin or the audacity to claim space, and she would not allow it to shake her tonight. Across the room, photographers adjusted their cameras, anticipating the usual poses and smiles of society's elite, but Jasmine's presence was magnetic and uncontainable. Each frame would capture more than fashion. It would capture defiance, confidence, and presence. She approached the display of the main auction items, where the centerpiece of the evening sat under a spotlight. The piece was exquisite, rare, and coveted, a symbol of both wealth and status. Jasmine had no intention of simply observing. The auctioneer began his spiel, calling for starting bids, and the room leaned in, expectant and polite, masking the tension with ritualized politeness. A small group of socialites whispered behind their hands, questioning her, mocking her, challenging her silently. Jasmine listened to the subtle criticisms and felt the familiar heat of scrutiny, but did not falter. Her decision crystallized in that moment. She raised her paddle, calm, deliberate, and unafraid, signaling the starting bid of $1 million. The gasp that rippled through the room was instantaneous. Some guests stifled laughter, some shook their heads, and others openly stared, caught between disbelief and intrigue. Charles Whitmore's eyes narrowed, his composed mask slipping just enough to reveal irritation. "Miss Carter," he said, his tone smooth yet edged with disapproval. "That's an extraordinary choice. Are you certain?" Jasmine met his gaze steadily. "Yes, I am," she said softly but with unyielding confidence. "I know exactly what I am doing." The room held its breath, cameras clicking and phones discreetly raised. The unspoken rules had been broken, and the tension was palpable. Whispers escalated, guests exchanging uncertain glances, some trying to figure out if this was a mistake, others impressed by her boldness. Security subtly adjusted their stance, sensing the disruption, unsure how to respond. Jasmine's heart remained steady. She was not just making a bid. She was commanding attention, demonstrating power without aggression, showing that presence and confidence could challenge authority effortlessly. Charles Whitmore moved closer, attempting to reassert control, his voice slightly sharper. "Miss Carter, perhaps you should reconsider. This is highly unusual." Jasmine shook her head, calm and resolute. "I am here for the cause. I am here to make a statement, and I will not step back." The room seemed to contract and expand with the tension she radiated. Guests who had been silently judging now watched in awe as she remained composed, unwavering, and elegant. Cameras captured every second, every subtle shift in expression, and soon the moment would ripple beyond the ballroom walls. Jasmine's mind wandered briefly, recalling every subtle dismissal she had endured, every whisper that tried to diminish her, every assumption about her place in spaces like this. Each memory fortified her resolve. She was no longer just a participant in the auction. She was the story itself. By the end of the night, her audacity would become a symbol of courage and confidence. But the night had only begun, and the challenges were far from over. As the auctioneer prepared to move to the next item, Jasmine remained a beacon of calm defiance, each breath and movement deliberate, each glance met with unflinching poise. The tension in the room was not just social. It was a quiet reckoning, an invisible battle between entrenched expectations and the unyielding assertion of presence. And as whispers morphed into murmurs and murmurs into outright astonishment, Jasmine understood that tonight she was not merely bidding on an item. She was reclaiming space, dignity, and authority in a world that often tried to deny both. The room had fallen silent, the usual chatter of wealth and prestige replaced by a tense anticipation as Jasmine Carter remained in her place, paddle raised, her expression calm yet resolute. Every eye followed her, every whisper now tinged with disbelief and respect. Charles Whitmore's carefully maintained composure wavered, his usual authority faltering in the face of someone unwilling to submit to the invisible rules of the elite. A few of the socialites approached, attempting to cast doubt, to remind her of the expectations of this circle, but Jasmine's response was measured, quiet, and unwavering. "I am here for the cause, and for no one else's approval," she said, her voice carrying effortlessly across the room, enough to silence the murmurs and redirect the focus. Security moved slightly closer, unsure whether they needed to intervene, sensing the tension but not understanding the full context. Jasmine felt the weight of the moment but refused to let it intimidate her. She was acutely aware of every judgmental glance, every silent calculation, and every small attempt to diminish her, and yet she stood firm, transforming scrutiny into a stage for her quiet assertion of power. The auctioneer cleared his throat, his voice now hesitant. "Do we have any other bids?" The room seemed to hold its breath. Jasmine's eyes scanned the crowd, meeting gaze after gaze, her calm defiance forcing them to reckon with her presence. A few attendees raised their own paddles, trying to challenge her, but hesitation and uncertainty kept their bids tentative, as if even their wealth and influence were secondary to the authority she projected simply by being herself. Charles Whitmore stepped closer again, his voice sharper now, tinged with frustration. "Miss Carter, you must understand the consequences of this action. This is not customary. It is disruptive." Jasmine's gaze never wavered. "I understand perfectly. I am disrupting only the notion that space and influence are dictated by anyone but ourselves." Gasps and whispers rippled through the room, a mixture of shock and admiration. Phones appeared in hands, cameras clicked, and soon every subtle expression, every quiet word, every act of composure would be captured for the world outside. She had become the centerpiece, the story, the measure by which everyone else would now be judged. The auctioneer's voice rose slightly, attempting to restore normalcy, but the rhythm of the evening had already shifted. The energy in the room was no longer dictated by the usual hierarchy. It was Jasmine who set the tone, who had forced the elite to confront their own assumptions and biases. As the auction continued, it became clear that the item was hers. Charles Whitmore's attempts to intervene were feeble, his authority undermined not by confrontation, but by Jasmine's unshakable poise. Cameras and smartphones recorded every second, creating a ripple effect that would extend far beyond the gilded walls of the ballroom. By the end of the evening, news of her bold bid spread across social media, discussions erupting online about her courage, elegance, and refusal to be diminished. Headlines highlighted the audacity and the calm authority with which she had turned a room built on pretense into a stage of empowerment. Messages poured in from colleagues, friends, and strangers, congratulating her not merely for the bid, but for the statement it represented. Charles Whitmore's reputation, carefully curated for decades, faced quiet scrutiny and public questioning as the story of Jasmine's defiance dominated conversations. Invitations to speak, to mentor, to inspire, and to lead opportunities that had once seemed distant suddenly became attainable. Jasmine understood that her victory was more than personal. It was symbolic. The bid, the attention, and the reactions it sparked were a demonstration that dignity, confidence, and self-assured presence could challenge the deepest-rooted structures of bias. Through it all, she remained grounded, conscious that the evening was a catalyst, not an endpoint. She reflected quietly on the way power could manifest in calm defiance, in measured words, and in the refusal to diminish oneself to satisfy the expectations of others. The ripple effect of her actions was already evident in the way the room, the media, and the social circles would remember this night. Guests who had once sneered now whispered about her influence. Staff and observers carried stories of her poise, and online audiences discussed and debated the audacity of one woman standing tall against centuries of silent assumptions. Jasmine's bid had transformed a single item into a symbol, and a single night into a story that would inspire and provoke discussion. She had claimed her space unapologetically, challenging not through aggression, but through calm, undeniable presence. And as she left the ballroom, the weight of her accomplishment was both quiet and profound. She had not only supported a cause she cared about, but she had redefined the narrative of what it meant to occupy space, to assert oneself, and to command respect in an environment designed to limit her. Jasmine understood that her influence would continue far beyond this night, that opportunities and recognition would flow not from the money she spent, but from the courage she embodied. Her story became one of resilience, poise, and strategic assertiveness, a blueprint for challenging bias and embracing self-worth in the face of entrenched expectations. The world had watched, and through her actions, she had shown that boldness paired with elegance could shift perspectives, dismantle assumptions, and inspire countless others to claim their space without apology. The charity auction was no longer about the item, the wealth, or the prestige. It was about dignity, presence, and the quiet yet undeniable force of self-assurance. Jasmine Carter had not only made a $1 million bid, she had made a statement, and that statement would echo far beyond the ballroom. And now, if you enjoyed this story and want to see more real-life accounts of courage, resilience, and defiance, make sure to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us bring more stories like Jasmine's to the world.